For the last 6 years, this has been my PC, and I got it on Facebook Marketplace after I blew up my last motherboard. In those 6 years, I've built 2 systems in this case. The case is a Fantex P400S with a P400A front panel, and for the last 2 years, it's been mounted underneath my desk. The problem with that is it looks like the PC is on the floor when my desk is in the seated position. So I want to make a change. I want something that's a little bit smaller, something that will look like the PC is actually floating rather than sitting on the floor underneath. The last PC I built was a mini ITX, and while I don't want to go that small, I think somewhere in between would be really good for this. So that's why I made the decision to go for MATX. This is the Asus AP201. Asus Prime AP201. God, it's one of the easier names of a case, and yet I still get it wrong. My choices were either this or the Lian Li Dan A3. Why did they put Dan in the name? Like, who is Dan? The only reason I went with the Asus Prime is because the buttons are at the top, whereas the Lian Li, they're at the bottom. And since my case is going under my desk, having the front I/O at the top was just a bit nicer for me. I was actually hoping to go mini ITX for this build, but I didn't want to re-buy a whole bunch of parts just to fit in the new case, and since my AIO has a bit more life left in it, I decided to go MATX so that I could reuse it. I do wish I made that decision sooner because I did end up buying a mini ITX motherboard. At least now, if I ever do decide to go to mini ITX in the future, I have the motherboard at the ready. The motherboard in question is an Asus ROG Strix B650EI, and I got it at an extremely good price considering how much mini ITX motherboards cost. The motherboard was all I needed to re-buy, all the other parts would fit in the case just fine. Now to disassemble my PC, starting out taking out the GPU so I can get access to all the bits on the motherboard. And before anyone complains, yes, I am building on the floor. I don't have any space anywhere else. It turned out fine, nothing broke. It's all good, don't worry. With the GPU off, next was the cooler. I'm reusing the EK cooler, so I wanted to be a little bit careful with it, and then I can get to the CPU. Just needed to collect all the screws that fell off. I very carefully removed my 64GB of DDR5 RAM. I somehow managed to get that in November, right as the crisis was beginning. I cleaned up and took out the CPU, which I forgot to record, and now I'm trying to put it in the new motherboard while remembering how to take out the black piece. I was afraid of it just popping out, so I ended up just taking it off myself. I think this next part was the most scary of them all, putting in the RAM. If I got this wrong, this would probably cost me about seven or 800 pounds. Can't believe I did a stupid 6-7 joke. The last thing to go on the motherboard was the storage, but since I wasn't used to working with something this small, I wasn't sure where the NVMe drives were actually meant to go. So it took me a little bit of time to work out that one goes on the back and one goes in the massive big heatsink on the front. With the essentials all on the board, it's time to button it back up and actually put it in the case. I love how easy to use this case is, as you can just remove the panels without any tools. And now putting the motherboard in, you can really see how small the mini ITX board will be in this build. Now with the motherboard in, I could put on the cooler, the SSD and the power supply. It's a bit strange putting the power supply at the front of the case, but I guess when you shrink the size of the case, some things have to go elsewhere. Now putting on the paste, I can now add the CPU cooler onto the CPU. One upgrade I did get for this PC was the fans. These are Lian Li fans with the RGB screens on, no, not the RGB screens, with the LCD screens on them. I found an auction for these where they were £100 off what they normally cost, so I jumped at the opportunity and put them in the PC. And it's gonna look a bit strange with the LCD screens not actually visible. I might end up selling these on as I'm not actually using the LCD screens, but these did get a problem with them that I'll show later on. Now with the graphics card in, the last thing to do was turn it all on.
Yay! It turns on, but it looks disgusting.
Yeah, I wasn't very happy with this build. There were cables absolutely everywhere and not much space to hide them. Also with the EK cooler and the Lian Li fans, I had 2 RGB controllers trying to hide in the back of the case. So I finished the build and it was really weird. The PSU being at the front I thought wouldn't be too much of an issue, but all the cables go down and sort of just congregate at the bottom of the front here. And that would be fine if there weren't 2 fan controllers with this build. So because I got the Lian Li fans, they come with their own fan controller, and then with the EK Elite AIO, that has its own fan controller. This one can plug any normal fan into it, but the Lian Li one can't. It has to use its own proprietary connector, so the fans have to use this to turn on. Why does everything have its own fan controller, an RGB controller? It's just like, come on. It would be so fine if these didn't exist, but they do, and they just get in the way, and now there's so many more cables to deal with. If everything was Li and Li, it would be okay. I would just need one of these and it'd be fine, but I need that, and there's so many cables, and because it's MATX, I can't really fit everything. And since I've managed to squeeze an extra 120 fan in at the bottom, the space down here, there's not a lot of it. So I've got to just figure out now how to cable manage all of this. So with the build technically done, I just thought it wasn't gonna cut it. Everything was a mess, so I went back to the drawing board and tried to see if I could remove anything and clean up all the cables. I cleaned off the CPU and added this bracket for AM5 CPUs. I don't really know if it's gonna make any difference, but I do like how it looks on the motherboard. Apparently it's meant to have even pressure across the CPU or something like that and avoid bending, but honestly I think it does absolutely nothing other than looks good. I really wanted to get rid of one of the fan controllers. Since I needed the Li and Li controller to use the Li and Li fans, I decided to remove the EK controller, but this meant losing the two EK fans on the AIO. Thankfully, I managed to find a good price on some 140mm Li and Li fans that were the exact same as the bottom fans minus the LCD screens, and these go straight into the Li and Li controller. This saved so much space and I managed to get everything cleaned up. It works, the motherboard's good, all the parts are good, nothing broke for now. Yeah, so famous last words. As I mentioned earlier, I had a problem with the Li and Li fans. One of my fans just stopped having any RGB. It still powers on and the LCD screen still shows a display, but the RGB just does not turn on and does not detect in the software. What's even weirder was that the RGB was working and then just stopped, so I don't really know what's going on with it. The PC is all done. Everything is now working except for that one fan, and it's been pretty good. I enjoy building these smaller PCs. It's a nice change from all the big PCs we used to have back in the day from NZXT. But thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe if you enjoy this sort of content. I'll be sure to never make it again. Leave a like if you enjoyed me struggle with this. Leave a dislike if I don't like your face. No, I can't say that. And I will see you in a few months' time when I decide to make another video.